I'd like to talk to you today about triggers, emotional triggers. What do you do when you get triggered emotionally? So, what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is if you are in a relationship, talking to somebody, a friend, who does something or says something that makes you feel very upset. But logically, what they did or said is not very upsetting. It wouldn't be upsetting to other people, but to you, it's very upsetting. So, for example, I might be talking to somebody I'm in a relationship with and saying, telling them my ideas about something, and then that person says, "Oh, that's a stupid idea," or "That's a lousy idea," or "Oh, I don't agree with that. I think something different." And for me, I might get triggered by that. Like, why do you think my idea is lousy? Why don't you agree with that? Why do you have a different idea than me? I might get triggered and I might get very upset and I might think, "Oh, I'm stupid. I have bad ideas. This person thinks I have bad ideas. That must be true." And I get very emotional and very down on myself, and I start beating myself up, and my emotions are very intense. When maybe the other person, all they said was, "Oh, I disagree with that. I don't think that's a good idea. I have this different other idea." So what they said wasn't abusive or mean necessarily. It was just them expressing themselves. But for me, it was extremely upsetting. Now, this is what I would call an emotional trigger. And you'll find that emotional triggers happen when somebody says something that reminds us of a previous relationship that emotionally we haven't quite resolved yet. Now, psychologically speaking, pretty much everybody has a mom button or a dad button or whoever raised you button, where if somebody says something that reminds me of my mother or something that annoyed me about my mother, that person's pushing my mom button. Or if somebody says something or acts a certain way that is similar to how my dad acted, they're pushing my dad button. Or the same thing goes if you're in a relationship and your current partner does something that reminds you of a previous partner who you did not get along with and you broke up with. And so this current partner, for no fault of his or her own, is saying or doing something that really on the surface isn't that harmful, but it reminds you of this past person, and so you maybe way overreact. So what I'm talking about is that emotional triggers are really a form of overreacting. And why do we do that? How do we stop that? First of all, it's important to identify when you are in a trigger, because many people have no idea they're in a trigger and they really feel like their emotions are justified for the situation. This, of course, is called emotional baggage. It's very typical in relationship. Say you got out of an abusive relationship and then you're in a current relationship that's not abusive and a really nice person. You're in a relationship with a partner who's a nice person, and they perhaps, you told them, "Can you buy me a sandwich at the deli, ham and cheese with mayonnaise," and they come back with ham and cheese and mustard, and you flip out and you say, "You don't love me, you didn't listen to me, I said mustard, you're not meeting my needs, you're a terrible boyfriend, I hate you, you never loved me." It's overreacting. We're talking about mayonnaise and mustard. But for the person in the trigger, maybe they don't see that. They really think that this person is so insensitive. So what is the trigger about? The trigger is really about the past relationship where they are with somebody who really didn't meet their needs and who was really self-centered, and they have a lot of grief around this past relationship that they haven't resolved. So triggers are an indicator of unresolved emotions from a past relationship. And so how you heal it is you have to go back into these past relationships and analyze them and feel them and grieve them, because really what we're talking about is unexpressed grief. If you have grief around a past relationship that ended badly, and if you don't feel your feelings and grieve your losses and cry over it, you might act out this past relationship in your current relationship. You might be carrying old baggage with you and acting it out with your current partner who's an innocent bystander. This happens a lot. It's actually a form of post-traumatic stress disorder, which is when people have a trauma in their past and they often have flashbacks to go back to this trauma, and the flashbacks are about the unresolved trauma. So let's say you had a relationship which ended badly, which on some level emotionally felt traumatic to you. And so then a current relationship which is going fine, but the poor unsuspecting partner brought home a sandwich with mustard because he misunderstood instead of mayonnaise, and you scream at him. It might be your baggage and your trigger and your flashback to your past relationship that you still haven't finished grieving. So this is what emotional triggers are, which is why it's very important to find out to be able to identify when you're in a trigger and realize, I think these emotions that I'm having are way too intense for the current situation. And perhaps this is a feeling I've had many, many times in my life. And so you want to make a list of, when did you have this feeling before? When did you feel unheard? When did you have this situation where you were explaining something to somebody and they didn't hear what you said and they brought you the wrong thing? You know, it could be this past relationship it reminds you of. It could remind you of your mother, who, whenever you explained to her what you wanted for Christmas, she bought you something that wasn't what you had told her. Or when you explained to your dad about how you wanted him to come to your baseball game and he misunderstood and missed the date and didn't make it. And this happened again and again and again, where you weren't seen or heard by your parents. You weren't seen or heard by your previous partner. And then your current partner, who inadvertently misheard you, gets the blast of your emotions that are really about your previous partner, your mom and your dad, and all the other people in your life and your history who have not seen or heard you, and your grief around that. So healing emotional triggers is very important if you want to have clarity in your current relationship.